I always feel very, very touched because of there's so many layers in the Gita. I've been reading the Gita for years, but every time I learn something new. It's so precious. So I pray that what I can give you tonight is going to actually make a difference to you, and that you will feel the relevancy of this chapter 14, which is all about the gunas. But you know what I want you to do is just put your hands together with me as we pay homage to that beautiful, beautiful scripture that gives us the doctrine that can help our way forward in the Kali Yuga, in this particular period in our lives. So just do 3 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya with me, okay? Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bolo Shri Gita Mate Ki Jai. Shri Arjuna Deva Ki Jai. Krishna Bhagavan Ki Jai. Satguru Shri Sukacharya Ki Jai. And as we acknowledge the teacher within us as well, and bring ourselves into this moment, thank you for joining me in this prayer. Chapter 14 reveals another secret, and of course, Krishna is constantly talking to Arjuna about the different facets, because he's like us, a human being that is suddenly caught in this incredible battle that he never wanted to fight, And then each time Krishna gives him another layer to think about and another layer to think about. And actually, he actually exposes to human beings how complex life is, and how many things actually impact on our lives that we are not even aware of. And the gunas are the forces of nature. And Krishna actually says to Arjuna, we are in such a predicament, human beings are in such a predicament, that they don't know the impact that nature has on their lives. And in a way, by revealing in chapter 14, he's revealing the secrets of how to live in a spiritual way, and at the same time understand the practicalities of how to put things into practice, because that was what the doctrine was about. That is what Gita is about. It's a spiritual doctrine that actually gives guidance to you and me and everybody else in this particular era. And the relevance is so incredible, isn't it? Okay, so what he shows us is that the 3 gunas are really, they have a huge impact on our lives. But what are they? And I just want to start with a slide on verse 5. Which actually says, here we are. Okay, here we're sharing the screen with you. Sattva, Rajas, and Tamas are qualities born of nature that bind the immortal soul in the body. So what are the gunas? The gunas are a binding force. Yeah. And that actually means that their impact on our lives is so great that it actually affects us. It really affects our lives. We cannot evade it. We cannot ignore it. Okay. So he starts with sattva, rajas, and tamas are qualities born of nature that bind the immortal soul in the body. No, I can't move this. Okay? So you're going to have to do it from there. Because I can't do it. And then, so where do the three gunas come from? And of course, there are two forces in life that have to create what we call the manifested world, which is the world that we live in. Okay, and that's Purusha, defined as intelligent consciousness, and Prakriti, which is the basic substratum of the universe. And when those two combine, then we have what we call the manifested universe. And within that, three forces of nature that affect all of our lives. So sattva, rajas, and tamas. Next. So what is sattva? Sattva is a neutral balancing force. It's full of light. It is the force of harmony. Okay. Rajas, in comparison, is the opposite, is active, stimulating force, initiating change. And tamas is passive, sustaining force that is actually very, very important to us as well. Because without tamas, we would not be able to sleep. So, but these three forces have very, very different effects on our lives. Okay. Thank you. What is Sattva Guna? Sattva Guna is an illuminating force that imparts dharmic virtues. Now, this is very important because the more sattvic we become, that's what it means, that the more sattvic we become, the more we flow with the flow of nature, with the laws of nature. It's like a natural kind of thing that we do. We are more harmonious, we are more pure, we live with ethical values that of truthfulness, and as a result, we always make the right choices in our lives. That is the power of sattva. Okay? And we are free. We are free. And that also means that when we are sattvic, we are very healthy because there is nothing barring our lives. Okay. What is rajas? Positive attributes, passion and power. Now we need rajas as well, don't we? In order to make things work in our lives, to move things, to move ourselves, okay? But Rajaguna is actually got a lot of also negative impacts in our lives, okay? When we are rajas, when we are in a rajas mode, we can become very selfish. And as a result of wanting everything and desireful, we also become very attached to things. We constantly pursuing something that is constantly changing. Okay? It's a very unstable, volatile force, very necessary because change would not happen without it. However, if that force actually impacts in our lives in a strong way, it is difficult to be stable. Okay. Then we have tamas guna. And tamaguna is inertia, actually. The positive force, as it says, creates stability. Without it, we would not be able to sleep. We would not be able to relax. We would not be able to be. Okay. However, if you have too much of it, you end up becoming you struggle against change because you like stability and you like to be just be, and also a personality that is affected by this tamaguna can often be very confused, creates their own delusions about life. The word procrastination. never gets to get anything done, always hanging back, okay? Tamas actually creates a very negative mind state. So it's very, very important to know the impact of these gunas. So predominance of any one of the gunas will reflect on how we think. And that's why that's the relevance, okay? They impact on the way we think and act in life. We all have spiritual and sattvic moments, rajasic and disturbed periods, and we have also tamasic and dull periods in our lives. But the key with this is that it's not only a force that is outside of us. We are a combination of tamas, rajas, and sattva also. So it's not only nature's forces, we ourselves are a combination of it. So depending on the force of nature in the period of time, you can imagine if you're very, very rajasic, and you're all and your temperament is also very rajasic. You're always going out there to get things done. And in Ayurveda, they call a person like that who's rajasic is very pitta. Okay. And what is pitta? Pitta is a mind state also. It's not only a pitta personality, it's a personality we are talking about. So there's a temperament that is affected by these three forces of nature that come from outside. But we are also a combination of tamas, rajas, and sattva. So when we look at young people, for instance, I'll give you an example. When we are looking at young people who have very tamasic, they don't want to do anything. They just want to hang out. They don't want to, they'll sleep for hours. And you know that period in your life when you could sleep and sleep and sleep. And when mom or dad came into your room, it's like, oh, for God's sake, leave me alone kind of thing. Yeah, that is very tamasic energy. And often when young people are very, very tamasic, they're very, very kapha. And, it's funny that tamas and kapha is actually is equivalent to each other. Okay? And if you're very up and going and you want everything done yesterday, then you're a very rajasic pitta personality. And if you're very creative, very, very a force in you that is, loves life, you spring into life all the time, you're very, very vata. And so the amazing thing is that, but you're also sattva, right? You're more inclined to go towards sattva. So what is important for us to know is that we need to, at the end of the day, we need to move towards sattva. Because rajas and tamas actually create problems for us. Okay, too much, I should say. Too much of rajas and tamas creates problems. And so there's a play. There's a play between the forces of nature outside, where it could be sattvic, tamasic, or rajasic, and then we ourselves have those temperaments. So what we have to know is understand ourselves, because the way we receive life and the way we perceive life matters. It matters because it determines how we act. And I just wanted to share a story with you, which whenever I used to do stress management workshops, I used to share this particular story because it was so relevant at the time. And it's all about perception. It's a woman asked her husband they'd had dinner and they'd been washing up and everything else. And then she had a bag of things for him to put outside. So she said, can you put this out next to the bin, please? So the husband happily went out with a bag, and it was dark outside. And he must have stepped on something, and something moved. And he got a shock of his life. He dropped the bag and he ran inside. And he said, oh my God, there is a snake in the garden. She said, a snake in the garden? She said, but we live in the UK. There are no snakes in the garden. He said, no, I saw a snake. I actually saw a snake. So she said, come on, dear, she said, you are hallucinating. She said, she grabbed a torch and went out with him. She said, let's have a look at this snake. And sure enough, there was a pipe there, and it was white in color, and he must have stepped on it and it moved, and he thought he'd seen a snake. Now, the thing is, often when we receive life in a particular way, we start to see snakes instead of ropes. And she realized, oh, that's what you saw. It's a rope. It's fine, you know. And then, of course, he settled. Now, when I talk about the way you receive life and the way you perceive life, now perception is a think and a feel. It's very important to understand. Okay? When we perceive, we are not only, it's not only a thought, it's also a feeling, which is why it has such an impact on the way we therefore act in life. So if you're always seeing snakes when they're only ropes, you know, you can imagine that you're always stressed and you will start acting in a particular way. And they say, of course, the way we receive life, perceive life, therefore determines how we act. And if it's negative and our experience of life is negative, our feelings about our life is negative, then you will actually act in a negative way and you will attract negativity and vice versa. So there's a loop there, okay? And so it's really, really important that when we look at this, we look at the whole process of, so what do we do? The most important thing is to work towards sattva, to become sattvic. It's a choice we need to make in our lives. You know, choice to live in a certain way. So it's a lifestyle issue as well. Okay. So how do you live? How do you, and I come back to this in a minute, because I just want you to know that when we move towards sattvic, the possibility of what we give to other people or the way we act in life is obviously positive. Okay? Giving people hope is sattva. You know, and I remember many, many years ago when the team, we were working in war zones, and we had gone to, at that time, we hadn't gone to a war zone that was active. We'd gone to a concentration camp. And in a concentration camp, we met a person there, a young person who was in his 30s or 40s, that young, okay? And he had tears coming down his eyes, and one of our team members asked him, why are you crying? And he said, I was in this camp. I was in this camp. And I was here with my father. And there were so many of us that were huddled in this place. And every Friday, he said, he said that conditions were terrible. I mean, I don't need to explain this to you. I know you know what concentration camp might have been like, you know. But one of the things was that there were not only it was full, they hardly had anything to eat. So they were given very dry bread and then very little butter on it or whatever. And what the father did every day was he scraped off whatever fat they put on the food, would scrape it off and he would save it. And the little boy, who was a young boy at that moment, said to his father, why are you saving this fat? As it is, we're not getting very good food. Why are you doing that? And then he saw his father put the fat together and create a wick, and then he lit a flame on the day of Sabbath, which is a Friday, yeah? And then they would all gather, the community that was in that particular place would gather and pray together. He said, why do you do this? There are so many people who are hungry. And he said, you know what? We can live without food. Do you know we can live without food for over 3 weeks, but without hope, not even a moment. This light is a light of hope. And the man said, I remember that moment of how important it is to give people hope. But he also said, I also remember that as a result, I learned, and he didn't know anything about sattva, okay? But I'm actually just trying to help you communicate that whole process of what sattva is. It's an act of positivity that creates positivity. And of course, that impacts in our lives, you know. And so it is a choice that we make. And today you can talk about the relevancy of it today. There's so many people who are struggling with businesses. They're struggling with finances. They're struggling with, will we be able to do this or that? Today I spoke to Tilly, and I said to Tilly, what do you think people need to hear? And it was all about safety and security, she told me. She said, safety and security is a really, really important thing, you know. Now, so in a way, the dilemmas don't go away, you know. And I just want to share another process with you, that those dilemmas don't go. The only thing that can help is the way we become. The way we become. Okay? And this man, I tell you another story. This man there was a man who was sitting, his business was actually falling apart. He had to make decisions, but that would mean that people would have to leave their jobs. And he knew that everybody was struggling. He's struggling with money. And he wanted to keep them all. But nothing was working. So he was sitting in this particular place, it was, I think, a park. And in that park, he was sitting with his hands, a head in his hands, worrying about how he was going to sort this issue out. And a very, very beautifully dressed man in this beautiful raincoat came walking by, and he saw this young man, and he said, young man, what's the problem? Why are you sitting with your head in your hands? And the man looked at this old man. He must have been in his 70s or something. And he looked at him and he thought, well, what have I got to lose? I can tell him. So he said, I've got a problem. My business is not working. People are may lose their jobs if I make the wrong decision. I don't want people to lose their jobs because people are struggling. Can't do this to people. Very sattvic man, right? And then he says to him, I don't know what to do. And this old man reached out into his pocket, raincoat, and he took out a checkbook and he wrote something, folded it, and he gave him a check. He said, here you are, young man, use this, and let me know, we'll meet in a month's time. Let me know how you get on. We'll meet here on this bench, okay? And of course, what actually happened was that man, he went home, opened the check, and oh my God, 500,000 euros. He couldn't believe it. And then he looked at the signature, and it was Rockefeller. And he said, oh my God. So what he did was, he thought to himself, I can't use this money. Let me see. He thought, let me put it in the safe. At least I know it's there. Okay, safety and security. Remember that we all go for safety and security. And what actually happened was that he put the check away, and he started to take risks. He started to become more creative. He started to move, and of course his business picked up. He was doing better than he had ever done before. And he was able to keep everybody. Month had gone by, and he thought to himself, I didn't even have to use that money. I did not have to use that money. How kind was that man? He said, I must go and return the money to that man. And then what actually happened was, of course, he went, and on the day, 1 month, he went and sat there waiting for this old man to turn up. And sure enough, an hour went by, and then suddenly he saw that same old man coming towards him and running, and behind him was a nurse. And he looked at this scene. He said, "What is this?" And the nurse looked at this man, and she realized that he was thinking that why was she chasing him? And actually what she said was, he thinks he's Rockefeller. And then this man looked at the check, and that check had no value except the value that he gave. How precious is that? How precious is that? That, sattva is all about giving. It's about sharing. It's about gratitude. And, even in these times, when we look at it, let's not forget that let's not go for safety and security to the point where we only think of me, myself, and I. Let's allow that, even though whatever's happening in the Middle East now, whatever's happening in other parts of the world, you know what we can do? We can pray. We can chant the Gita. We can do a verse of the Gita towards the Middle East for peace. We're not helpless. That is a sattvic act. That is a very important thing for us to do. So we needn't feel, that it's all end and well nigh, that nothing will, is going to change. No, we have the power. We really have the power. So to act in that way. Now, what I do want to share with you is that according to Ayurveda, there are 5 portals through which information enters our body. Okay, and those 5 portals are the eyes, because we can see; the ears, because we hear; the nose, because we smell. Information comes in through touch. When we touch something, we also read energies, And of course, the last thing I have here is taste, food. Okay? If we keep these portals pure as we can, and I know Mikhail the other day shared a very beautiful talk on the Gita, and he said, if we have an intelligent contact with life, then we make the right choices. And then, of course, it is a choice, right? So, what do I mean? You remember the 3 wise monkeys? See no evil, speak no evil, hear no evil. Okay? That tells you everything about what you need to do, which is, don't watch things that affect you in a way that actually aggravates and creates negative states of mind. Eat food that actually gives you energy and power and a prana that helps you to feel good and healthy in your body, heart, and mind. Don't listen to things that are negative, And I want to say also, I go as far as the scriptures talk about it, the Gita talks about it, that, it's so important that what company you keep. If the people that you share with are always putting you down, don't bother to spend time with people like that. Make a decision to cut that friendship, because it's not friendship. And yourself, what is my responsibility? What is your responsibility? Is that it's so important that we use the knowledge about how to give, how to empower other people as a way of also empowering ourselves, because we're all connected. It's understanding that we are all one. Yeah. So when you look at your lives, if you want to move towards sattva, evaluate what you watch. Evaluate it. Okay. You don't have to stop watching. You have to just discriminate about what you watch and what you don't watch. Like, for instance, if anger, anxiety, tensions, you will feel it. It will become part of you. You have no choice, because we are not only the physical body. We are the subtle body. We are the sound body. We are an energetic body, and we have the ability to absorb, just like a receiver, transmitter. We also transmit, but we also receive. So it's very important to realize, to take responsibility in our lives about how we spend our time, what we spend our time doing. What do we read? Do we read things that inspire and uplift? Not only us, but other people as a result. Because these are choices. These are daily choices, which is why the Gita actually is perfect, because even in this time and age, it doesn't matter. What I do know is that there's always been troubles in the world. There've always been trials and tribulations in the world. But it's all about how we receive and how we perceive. If you're in your center, then you will be able to create a center of life that is very empowering. And the more of us do it, the more of us increase the light, the harmony, and what we call sattva in the world. That's our duty. That's why you're reading the Gita, because you want to understand who you are, what you're capable of doing, and therefore move towards that which is empowering and uplifting of all life. Yeah. So I leave you with that. And it was really funny that I came across a beautiful quote today, and it said, "What you want won't come if you only think about it." Okay? What you want won't come if you only think about it. Turn the think into a feel. Turn the think into a feel, and let that feel saturate the field around you. Okay, so I'll say it again. What you want won't come if you only think about it. Turn the think into a feel, and let that feel saturate the field around you. I feel, so, and then there's a statement, a very beautiful statement. It says, I feel I am already the person I aspire to be, and act accordingly. So in a way, and this is, this is something also from the quantum field, that we have to recognize that our perception is a think and a feel. So if we think positive, our world becomes positive. It really does. It really does. And if there are enough of us doing that, imagine the impact of our lives on the lives of others on this planet. Isn't that fantastic? So none of us need to feel that helpless. We just need to use the knowledge that we have. And what I also realized is that, instead of worrying about what's happening in the Middle East, instead of worrying about what's happening in the Ukraine, instead of worrying about all the different places where people are going hungry and all of that, what we can do is we can pray. We can sit, we can meditate, yeah. We can chant. And you know what? Many years ago, I used to tell people, oh, the Gita is very powerful, the Gita is very powerful. But I never realized the impact of the Gita until something happened in my life. And what happened in my life was I had lost my brother, I lost my father, I lost my mother, all within 2 years of each other. And each time I chanted the Gita from the beginning to the end. And that was just chanting Sanskrit, okay? And the light that came into the room was incredible. And I felt so light. I was able to manage that, what was felt like a calamity in my life. I was able to manage my life in a positive way. So I can actually say to you, it works. It really works. So please, please do, every day, do light your flame. Do light your flame. It's a very sattvic, this is a very sattvic act. It will and help, and actually even chant one verse, just one verse of the Gita. And I would say, go for chapter 15, because chapter 15 gives a lot of knowledge about the upside down tree. Oh, that's going to be next, isn't it? Oh, wow, yes. So sorry, I've given you the ideas already, but use that chapter and send it out into the world and see the effect. It's incredible. Thank you for joining me. I hope you have gained a lot from this. Thank you. Om Shanti, 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 Om.